Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to something new. This is a show called Models and Memories Weekly. This is a show I've thought about for a long time and I finally decided to pull the trigger. This is a show where I'm going to talk about all the painting, modeling, and wargaming things I did throughout the week, and then I'm going to end every episode with a story. You might think, Jay, you live stream every single night and you put out 3 YouTube videos a week. How could you possibly have more stuff to say? Well, I do. And here goes. This week, I tried something new. I tried actually having a routine. I've been trying to wake up at 6:45 to give myself enough time to paint for fun a little bit in the mornings, which is a big change. I am not a morning person at all. Usually I go to bed around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I get up around 9 or 10 and then just feel horrible. It is, when you wake up at 9 or 10, it feels like you've wasted your entire life and there's no point to anything. But with this new schedule that I'm trying to do, it is giving me a little bit more time to focus on the things I want to get done, and it's letting me do my job, which is a nice touch. And with getting up so early, I've been really enjoying painting because I've been painting some Malifaux. I've been really enjoying these models. I bought a box for my birthday of the Performers. It's a Performers expansion. It is full of mannequins, and these mannequins called Choreography, which are what I spent the week painting. And I had so much fun painting these. I have now, with all 4 done, the 2 mannequins and the 2 choreography, I have a full box of Malifaux painted, and that is such a good feeling when you have the box, and then you're like, every model from this box is painted. It's so rare. It's so like, oh, I've painted 5 models from Indominus. Like, ugh. There's 61 models in Indominus. That'll never get done. But 4 can totally get done. These choreography models, I actually got to try out some really interesting stuff. One thing that's interesting with miniature painting is, even though it's all the same, you're painting a model, you're getting out the primer, you're getting out the base coats, you're washing, you're varnishing, you're dry brushing, you're kind of faced with unique challenges every single time. And every time you do something new, it's gonna suck. It's just not gonna really work out that great. And you can negate this with experience, like, oh, well, you've painted blue before, you've painted small models before, you've painted big models before. And so I had actually done it. I had painted these little mannequins that you might remember from the glasses video. And these turned out very nice. They took 8 hours to do. I had a lot of fun painting them, but the choreography, because they're essentially the same model, I painted them up much quicker and they turned out much better. Not much better, but they definitely came together a lot nicer. I got to try some really fun non-metallic metal on their claws. And you know what, I learned something with the non-metallic metal too. What ended up happening was, on the front, I painted this kind of shimmer from left to right, and it didn't quite look like a reflection. It looked pretty bad, but I spent so long on it that I really didn't want to change it. So I thought, well, let me just go ahead and paint all of the rest of the claws, and then we'll see how I feel. And so I painted all the rest of the claws with one specular light source right in the middle, and then it fades to black on either side. And that ended up looking so good that I finally decided I have to repaint the front, otherwise the model will be worse for it if I don't do that. Also, when I was painting these models, they're so small and I was kind of doing a lot of handling with them that I was actually rubbing off the paint just a smidge. So I decided to, after I painted their lovely dresses, I decided to varnish the entire mini to protect it from my Cheeto hands, and it worked out really nice. It actually was kind of a big weight off my shoulders. I didn't have to worry about handling. I could be a little sloppy. I could kind of hold them in a little bit of a firm grip and not worry so much about being delicate and gentle. Overall, I had an absolute blast painting these choreography, and I can't wait to paint up some more Malifaux minis. It is nice not painting GW on occasion. And along with painting for fun, which was painting the choreography, I had a blast painting for the channel. On stream, I have been painting this Star Wars Legion Dewback Rider. And once again, it revitalized my love of painting. Not that I always love painting, but some models just lend themselves to being more enjoyable than others. And I found that this model absolutely lent itself to just being fun. I think that really comes from not so many unique details or not being too big or too small. The skin of the dewback has a really nice rough texture to it, and that really helped out. I got to do some things that I don't usually get to do, like dry brushing and washing. And usually I don't do those because I do feel like I give up a little bit of control when you just decide to hit a model with a dry brush. But I usually do feel like I have to layer and glaze everything or else I'm just not getting my true vision. But sometimes it is fun to just kind of slather on a wash or hit it with a dry brush and kind of see. It's very similar to doing a glaze and a wash, but instead of one little spot, you're transitioning from like a nice orange to a red with, 3 to 100 brush strokes. You're just slathering the entire dewback in a little bit of a black wash to see if it brings out the scales. Or, the scales become too dark, and so you just hit the whole model with a dry brushing, and they immediately begin to lighten. So it was a really, really fun little exercise in painting, and trying to paint more simplistically. I do intend to have an entire Legion army, and I feel like the models lend themselves to being painted up in a little bit more of an action figure-y or cartoon way. I've looked at a lot of people paint Legion models, and I haven't seen a lot of like absolute beautiful, it looks like a photograph of a 8-foot sculpture. I haven't seen a lot of that. I've seen a lot of people paint up wonderful, beautiful game pieces. And I really, really want my Legion models to join the ranks of those. And they're magnetized. I don't know if that's something part of the game. I don't know if that's gonna be usable at all, but I did it and it was fun. And you know what this Star Wars Legion dewback writer reminds me of is Jeff Bezos, that tricky devil. He got me again this week. So as I've been painting this up for the last few days, I have been keeping my eye on all things Legion on Amazon, being like, what will I dip my toe into next? What will be the next thing? And I saw that there was a sale going on with the Luke's Landspeeder, the X-34, which is one of the vehicles available to the Rebels. Usually it's $59.99, but it was on sale for $36 flat. So, had to pull the trigger. Old Jeff, he knows how to reel me in. But I'm really excited to buy it. I have been in love with that model since I saw Sarastro painted up a couple of years ago. And it is such a novel and brilliant concept to give that unit to the Rebels, because everybody knows it from the openings of Star Wars 77 with Luke hopping into his Landspeeder. I know some of the behind the scenes was they actually hung sheets of mirror underneath it so that it reflected the desert and made it look like it was actually hovering. But the Imperials work so well for an army game. They have a billion different vehicles. They have a billion different troops. They're a real army. How do you give that to the Rebels? And I think having a couple of Rebels kind of hanging off of the old rickety Landspeeder is such an absolutely brilliant concept, and I'm really excited to get to paint it. And I'm really excited to get it in my hands, actually, because this guy is a big lump of PVC plastic. So it's a little tiny bit bendy, but I'm wondering if because the Landspeeder is probably a fair bit bigger than this, I wonder if it's also going to be PVC, or I wonder if that's going to be the harder polystyrene plastic. So I'm really excited to get that in my hands and to paint it up. Maybe if I continue to get up nice and early in the mornings, I'll be able to play around with that, but who knows? One thing I keep saying over and over when I talk about these models that I painted is I had fun. And I don't know if I uniquely had fun with these guys, or if it's just I'm in a cycle of loving painting. I always enjoy painting, but it is an interesting thing to think about, is painting fun? Because it's almost objectively not fun. Like, it's not video games where it's just, it's just so much fun. But the practice of putting the paint on, highlighting, layering, weathering, looking at it, not being completely satisfied, going back and touching things up. And it's almost a little bit of the anticipation of the finished project is so addicting that it kind of makes the painting process worth it, and it kind of makes the painting process fun. Especially when you get closer to that end stage of the model and you really get to see okay, well, the model is good. The model looks really good. What can I do to add to it? What can I do to make it perfect? And those decisions really become fun. Maybe I'll redo the eyeballs, or maybe I will re-highlight the dress because it's kind of losing out to the weapons. I think those moments kind of really make painting fun, because it's not as much fun as some other things. But inside of the entire world of wargaming and having finished models that you look at on the shelf, just the ability to, I love video games. I love some video games, but they don't make me happy in the same way that if I'm feeling really kind of crappy and I go over to my shelf and I see the last couple of models I painted, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. I'm okay with that. It's a different feeling, and it's a different emotion. And I think that's why even models that weren't the most fun thing in the world to paint are still kind of worth it, and were still a real blast to paint. So it was a good week of getting things done, and at the end of each of these episodes, I would like to tell a little story. I was trying to think about a good way to wrap up these episodes, and I actually had a thought. Looking behind me at all of the things that fill up my set, these are all my stuff. This is the stuff from my childhood and from my life, and I've kept all of them, and I didn't keep them to fill up a YouTube set. I have them all for a reason. Each little object tells a little story that's very personal and meaningful to me. And so I think what better way to wrap up a show about miniatures than to talk about the relationship of objects to emotions and experiences. Because I think what mini painting really does is it lends itself to object-based people. And not objects meaning like Bentleys or Rolls Royces, but objects in terms of the relationship between a physical thing and the emotions and the experiences that you had while doing it. Like I have miniatures that where I remember what podcast I was listening to while painting them, or I remember what was going on. And I think sometimes those feelings become so strong that they just manifest in an object. And that's why I have some of these. So for this first episode, I want to talk about a little bit dusty. This Anakin Skywalker Pod Racer model kit. This is a model that I've experienced twice in my life. This particular model reminds me a lot of my dad and about one of my favorite movies of all time, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Now, what do I mean by that? What I love about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace is, number one, I was like 6 when I was watching that movie, but also it's just kind of a happier, more upbeat movie than the other ones. All the scenes take place during the day, bright sunlight. The pod racing, which is like a quarter of the movie, is amazing. And one particular reason, though, why I have this model, because this is the only real Star Wars model kit I've ever, I mean, I built a few, but this is the only one I still have and I'm happy with, is when I was little, I loved model kits. I loved airplanes and trains and cars and tanks, and I would put them together with hot glue, which, as we all know, is the perfect glue of choice. But I don't know. My dad, he really wanted to help me kind of get into this more, and so one day he showed up with this model kit. And I was way too young to possibly be able to put this together. And he kind of just gave it to me and then vanished. Like, he kind of left me to my own devices. And so I think I put together one engine a little bit with my hot glue, and then I was getting a little bit impatient, so I painted the engine, and then I was like, it was like the highlight of my week, but then it started to fall off. I couldn't figure out what the instructions meant. I couldn't figure out how to put it together. I couldn't figure out how to make it look like the box, and it came with this horrible base that was the Anakin Skywalker symbol. You can see it a little bit like on these fins, but I think most of the parts ended up in my Lego bin, and I would see them occasionally while I was playing with my Legos. I would see, oh, there's a little piece of the model kit. But then, jump forward years. I think I put this together maybe 4 years ago. But I was surfing on eBay looking for Warhammer stuff, of course, and I saw this model kit. Instantly I was brought back to that moment of little old me taking the saran wrap off and seeing all of those lovely bright gray plastic pieces. And so instantly add to cart buy. It was like $7. It was so cheap because this is not a very good model kit. It's one of those beginner level models that are harder to build than intermediate level models because parts don't fit together. The instructions are very bad. The instructions are hand-drawn versions of the model kit's pieces, so they don't quite look the same. Everything was horrendous, but I worked so hard because it just reminded me of those moments from childhood, and I needed this particular model to live up to those moments. And so I went all out. I perfected every piece. I built this base out of wood chips. I went to the hardware store and I bought this lovely piece of maple, and I polished it and I polished it and I polished it so that it shined even without a coat of varnish on it. It's very difficult to tell. We'll probably put in a picture, but I actually sculpted flames and then cast them in clear resin so you can see some little bits of flame poking out just like it does in the movie. And I painstakingly applied all of the horrendous decals so that I had everything accurate to how it was in the movie, resculpting things, adding things, getting every single detail completely perfect. And it really, it really put a nice bow on all of those memories and experiences. Like I still have the memory of ruining it as a child, and now I have those finished memories of having it put together perfectly. This is the best. I have not found evidence of someone doing a better job with this particular kit, and it's pretty exciting to have it. I don't know. This is just a really important piece for me, and I'm really glad that I still have it, and I haven't dropped it or destroyed it yet. So that was the story of the Star Wars Episode 1 Anakin Skywalker's Pod Racer, and it's why I have it. And that wraps up this episode of Models and Memories Weekly. So I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.